turn this a little bit.
Yay, I can be a hero.
There we go.
Yeah, get rid of this guy.
Yeah, who's that guy over there?
Who's this guy?
Trying to crash. Luke, welcome to New York Comic Con.
Thank you very much for having me.
I feel like you just got a much warmer welcome than I gave you on stage.
Yes.
How was
But
that?
I mean, you gave me a pretty warm welcome, buddy. Yeah, don't sell yourself so short. That was lovely. Yeah. No, it was great. It was nice to see there. I mean, I didn't really expect there to be that many people when I walked out.
packed.
It was so packed. I heard it was one of the only panels one of the first panels to sell out, which is obviously always great to hear, because to know that the movie's got a bit of a fan base already is great.
Lord of the Rings fans, man, they show up.
Yeah, they do. They show up. They turn up in their droves, obviously. Yeah, and they know that. And yeah, they know their stuff as well. So they could potentially be pretty difficult to please. But fingers crossed, we've done a good enough job that they're going to be happy.
I think so. Based on what we saw in there, the War of the Rohirrim looks awesome.
Yeah.
Have you had a chance to talk to fans or read anything online and just kind of get a sense of what you just touched on? That Lord of the Rings fans are very passionate, they're very knowledgeable, and what has that done for your experience as part of this franchise now?
Yeah, well, there's a short answer to that, buddy. Because obviously the movie's not come out yet,
yeah.
and there's a few people were at a private screening last night, and they'd seen it, and they all seemed. The response just seemed absolutely fantastic. People seem to really enjoy it, and even just watching that, people watching that 8-minute clip out there earlier today, they seem to really digged it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't tend to read reviews because it's I just find it can be more of a hindrance than a help sometimes. But I mean, I think because the movie's not out yet, it's difficult to know what fans are going to think. But from the response we've had so far with what has been seen, I think it's going to be great.
So you're playing Wulf.
I am playing Wulf.
Okay, Wulf, scar on his face.
Yeah.
I watched a video actually, and the narrator of this video said, anybody with a scar on their face in a movie, usually a bad guy.
Yeah.
Wulf, I feel like I heard we might fall in love with him.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know.
Yeah, I think you might love him before you hate him,
Okay,
which is the plan. You want to love him before you hate him, if you hate him. But I think to know that there's whether you agree with it or not as a fan, there's a reason why he is the person that he is, and I think a lot of people will resonate with the reason why he is. So yeah, fingers crossed they understand him before they hate him.
Can you talk to me about the relationship your character has with the Hera character who's named now for the first time? Can you talk to me about Wulf and Hera's relationship?
Yeah, well, they've been childhood friends. They've known each other. There's a little nod to that in the movie as well, which you see. But they've known each other since they were kids. They used to play together. I think they're bonded by the fact that they never had a mother figure really in their lives to sort of help guide them through that, through some of their trials and tribulations. I think they're both fiercely loyal to their families, and I think that fierce loyalty to their families is what bonded them, but is what also divides them in the end.
Okay, interesting. So after this, what do you hope people take away from the movie as just Lord of the? I mean, I've been watching Lord of the Rings since I was a kid, man. I imagine it's the same for you.
Yeah.
I just was joking with Jason. He said, if you've seen the Two Towers, I was like, nobody has not seen the Two Towers.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping to get out of this journey for yourself, and what are you hoping audiences take away from it? Which is kind of two separate questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think ultimately this is, even though we're telling this story in the Lord of the Rings universe and the Tolkien world, I think it feels like a very human story this time, and I think this is the first time a story like this has been told, a Lord of the Rings story has been told in the anime format. So I think there's going to be something new in there for everybody. They're seeing it in a different visual medium. So I think if the audience is going to it with an open mind, I think they'll really learn to love this one.
I love Brian Cox.
Yes,
I don't know if you guys got to literally work together, because I know it's
we didn't actually get to work together. We didn't. A lot of us didn't even meet until this process. As actors, the first time we're just reading in with a reader, so I didn't even get to hear how Gaia and Brian were performing their lines until much later on in the process. And, this has been a 3-year journey for all of us guys. So it's been to see it finally come to fruition is amazing.
Dude, there's something about him though when he unleashes a voice, when he did it as Logan Roy in those scenes where he gets serious, he's doing it again as Hammerhand.
Oh my God,
Dude, that voice is terrifying. I feel like if you're on the wrong side of that, it's kind of so hearing his voice as Hammerhand and getting to see everybody's work. What was that like for you to see and hear for the first time? Yeah,
I mean, amazing. Man, he's got such a power and gravitas to his voice. I think that comes from his theatre background as well. But he's sort of like one of the masters of being able to tell a story with purely your voice, which I think was a lot of it. I can't speak for Gaia, but it was definitely a massive learning curve for me just to try and act purely with your voice. But he's a master of his craft, and he knows exactly how to deliver a line, be it up here or be it down here in the register. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. So to be opposite that, didn't have to leave much to my imagination, and it was to play opposite that, it was. All I had to do was just react. It was great.
I can't wait to see it, man. Thanks so much for the time. Enjoy the rest of your Comic Con.
Thank you so much.
Philippa, thank you so much for talking with me at New York Comic Con.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. I'm excited to be here. You know, we've been kind of looking forward to, getting this out there to some fans and feeling some reaction, and so far so good, right?
What was it like on stage to feel the energy when you showed a bunch of footage during the panel, which all looked awesome, by the way?
Thank you. Well, you had Stephen Colbert up there, so I mean, he's always going to bring that incredible passion that he has for Tolkien to it. And, what a gift. So, no, I tell you, I could feel it coming from the room. I could feel that excitement. I loved it.
How did you pick the footage you were going to show today? How did the team decide, okay, these are the scenes?
We actually went around the block on that. It's a really interesting question. It wasn't easy. Well, we've shown some stuff, like we showed some stuff at Annecy, and we thought, well, we're not going to do that again. It's a beautiful piece of footage, but so there was a number of things. We talked about maybe showing the battle for Edoras, which it's epic. You know how that theater was shaking, right?
Yes.
And
you can feel it.
Oh, dude, wait for the battle. It's
the fact we get to watch it on a big screen too.
Yeah. I'm such a geek. I'm excited, and I've seen the film.
How many times have you watched it?
Oh,
probably a million by now.
You do. I did recorded the ADR, so you actually end up watching every single thing about 30 times or whatever. By the time you've done all the characters and everything. But as much as I know it, every time I see it, I swear to God, this is the mastery of Kenji Kamiyama, and I think fans are gonna. This is why they're gonna love it, especially Tolkien fans. Every time you see it, there's another thing you missed, and really pay attention to the backgrounds.
Okay.
Some of the stuff, there's quite a few little Easter eggs in there as well.
Speaking of Easter eggs, I noticed I caught this. I know people online caught this as something I noticed as well. Is that there's little details of things like crowns, for example. You'd expect a crown to be the crown we then saw in a live action story that takes place after this. There's a lot of familiar settings and people who we've met their descendants, and then maybe some things that change. How do you guys decide? Okay, here's a little thing we might tweak, whether it's the crown, maybe that's part of the story, and here's things we just have to outright do to honor the legacy of what has been established in cinema before.
I mean, the silhouettes are incredibly familiar. The silhouette of the Hornburg, the silhouette of Meduseld against those white mountains behind them. That's all incredibly familiar for the fans, but Kamiyama brings a different eye to it, and it's so beautiful the way that we're in the deep in Coombe, where the Hornburg is, before it's called Helm's Deep. I was going to say Helm's Deep, and I stopped myself. Did you? but so we're in there for a while, and because it is a siege, and it's a siege during the long winter, so you get this really frozen quality to this landscape that's super interesting. The way he uses it, it's slightly ghost-like, and so I love all that he brings to that. But then there's other things I think, for example, we weren't. There were some things that we weren't sure about, it's a weird moment. You'll see it with the gates, and when you see the film, you'll know what I mean about the gates of the Hornburg. We had to change them, and there's a very specific reason why we had to change them. And actually, Peter was the first person who went, I don't think those are the right gates. And then we discussed it, and there's a reason why they aren't.
Interesting.
So what we have assumed for the storytelling and tried to show a little bit is, though the gates that you see in the live-action film are replacement gates.
Okay, so we'll see. Interesting. That's exciting. That's cool. That's cool. This is a story that in the text, elements of the story take place over several years. Can you talk about how many years, or what sort of timeline will be spanned across in the War of the Rohirrim?
It is a year. It's over it's the long winter, literally. We allude to different things, and we look forward a little bit. We cast forward a little. It's narrated by Eowyn, so you immediately get a sense of that gap of time. When we talked to the brilliant Miranda Otto about that, it was it was one of those things where we sort of, to help her conjure this, she's such an amazing actress. She wanted all of that. She wanted to be back in that world. And so we talked about, okay, so maybe you are the princess who ended up in Gondor, because she does. And that'll have relevance when you see this film. You are actually the Lady of Rohan who ends up in Gondor, and you're talking to your son. You're telling him the tale. And so there was always that yearning for her home, I think, in there, which is,
I can't wait to see this. Can you send me the movie? Can we? Having worked on these Lord of the Rings movies through the years and having been such a cool part of such an incredible franchise, I'm curious, like, leading up to this project finally being something we're getting to go back to this world in, how many times along the way since the Lord of the Rings trilogy, then we got The Hobbit, was there ever like a project that almost happened that you were like, oh, we're getting close, and then no, and then almost, like, wherever it falls starts, things that you kind of really wanted to see fulfilled and hope maybe one day still?
Yeah, yes, and actually there's a lot of that in The Hunt for Gollum, I have to say, that's coming up. And it's been an interesting process going back, thinking not in terms of, because I've actually had my head in the world of anime now, and the storytelling on anime, which is slightly different, I have to say. It's a different approach. And now going into The Hunt for Gollum, yes, so now, I went, it was quite kind of nice stepping back 200 years and not being in that intense moment that the War of the Ring depicts. Now I've gone back there, and now it's like you have to,
I don't know how you keep it all so balanced. It's so impressive. That's one of the most impressive things that your writers do, is keep it all balanced. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your time in New York Comic Con.
I hope you enjoy the movie.
I can't wait to see
it. And by the way, look, Horse Girl.
Yeah, she's a horse.
Horse Girl movie.
Thank you so much, Philippa. Have a good time. I'm not used to interviewing people who are taller than me. It's very uncommon in this industry for me to run into somebody above 6'3". Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on an awesome panel at New York Comic Con, Jason.
Thank you.
War for the Rohirrim looks awesome. I would actually just like to start with the look of it. Talk to me about bringing to life a world in anime, which is a world we're familiar with in cinema.
Yeah.
This is before we knew it, but it's, talk to me about that challenge.
It was a challenge. I mean, we did work with the Weta Workshop folks and a lot of the original designers from the original films, and we wanted to make sure that though we were bringing an anime look and feel to Tolkien's world, it still felt like what you had seen in the Peter Jackson films. So it was a long and arduous process of making sure that the design elements and everything accurately reflected what you might have seen in the movies, but changing them so that they felt like anime, because we didn't want it to feel like some weird not anime. We wanted it to feel like what you understand as Japanese animation.
Yeah.
So it was really giving those artists the freedom to reinterpret the stuff from the original films, which ended up being quite a process with a lot of back and forth. But it actually was great because a lot of the artists were influencing each other's work in ways that we didn't anticipate that ended up creating really cool things.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
Talk about going back and forth. I'd love to hear about the back and forth with Peter Jackson, obviously legend of the Lord of the Rings franchise. Was there one thing he insisted you guys do, and was there one thing he said, no, we can't do that? Or anything along
there
those
wasn't, there wasn't anything he said don't do. There were some stuff where with his notes on the film, he was part of the process through the whole thing. His notes on the film were very, very much like when you work with him, you realize, I understand why his movies always make $1 billion. Because he knows what an audience wants. So his notes were very good. He's a really great audience because he'll watch the movie and he'll go, this and this and this didn't really make sense. You need to create some through line for this, or this needs to happen earlier. And you would go, it would be like stuff that when you hear him say it, you go, of course we should have thought that. And then, but other than that, he gave Kamiyama a ton of freedom. Once he saw the film and he said to us, I was so amazed at how quickly I just fell back into the world. He's like, within 10 minutes, I was there. And he said, I didn't think I would feel that. So when he said that, we were like, oh, well, we're on good track, So, and from that point on, he said, look, you guys know what you're doing. I like your interpretation a lot. So I'm just going to give you audience notes. And from there, that's what it was.
How cool is that, though?
It's amazing.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Your character here, Hera, unnamed in the text.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's still sort of boundaries you have to follow to honor the text, but I feel like also you had some freedom with this character to kind of do your own thing a bit without stepping on any text toes.
Yes.
Talk to me about Hera, what you got to create with her, and some of the things you thought were really important to also take from those pages.
Yeah, I mean, the beautiful thing about the adaptation of this story is it's a template. It's just backstory for Rohan that Tolkien wrote like on a day off of other things. But we were able to stick to all the events of the story. But the fact that he said, oh, he has a daughter and didn't give her a name gives us a way in, because otherwise your story is about Helm and then he dies halfway through the movie. And then what? And then suddenly you pick up Freylaf somewhere. So it doesn't, like, who's going to connect those two halves of the kingdom of Helm and then the eventual person who takes the crown, which is Freylaf. And they left us space to create this character who she could see she could see everything that happens, and the audience, she can be the audience surrogate. So it just made sense. And from there it was trying to flesh her out as a real person and to make her feel like a Tolkien-esque hero, a reluctant hero, not a total badass, not a girl boss, not somebody who comes out fully formed, ready to kick ass, somebody who has this thrust upon her and who doesn't want it, and who has just a normal person who has to figure out in this hour of great need how can she rise to this occasion she never thought she would have to rise to. And to us, not only was that good drama, it again was a good connection for where the story begins on the page and ends on the page, and then leaves her free to do whatever, because he didn't give her a future,
I have a couple more questions for you, but I want to pinch this way so that we don't end up in her interview. We're just going to pop on in. We're doing two at once. Brian Cox as Hammerhand sounds really. He's fun, dude. He was hilarious during the panel. He seems awesome, man. We see a punch in the trailer that was released previously. How deadly is a punch from a man named Hammerhand?
I mean, I will say he single-handedly fights a snow troll. He fights at least 30 guys at the end. He kills Freko with one punch. So we did our best. Look, we really wanted to honor the fact that this guy is supposed to be a legendary hero, almost a hero of old, almost like, even though he's a human, he's superhuman. He does things that no one could really do. And we wanted that to come across. So when you see him fight, you feel that this guy is way beyond anybody else.
So you talk about like legendary hero. We're expanding the world. We're going back 100 years. I just want to hear, just when this is over, when we've seen the whole film, how much are the Lord of the Rings fans, those of us who have been with it from the beginning, in cinema? Because I know we can go to Tolkien's text and learn so much about this, but how much do you think this really expands what we know about this by going back to this time?
I mean, really, it's cool to see. I think if you've seen the Two Towers, you see Edoras.
If you've seen who hasn't seen the Two Towers?
It's true. You see Edoras run down, right? Now you get to see Edoras almost at its height. You get to see it as a very successful city with Helm, a legendary king who's brought it to greatness. Then you see it fall, and you see it lit on fire. And I think it just gives you a sense of like why these people are so flinty and tough, and what they had been through before you even see them in the Two Towers, and how they might have essentially done what they did, which is saved the world, really, by them coming to the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Without the Ride of the Rohirrim, they would have lost. So, how are these people so hardy, and what have they been through? And you get a little bit of the sense of that.
So now in December, I got to go see this one and then go home and marathon the films, and it's all going to make it all better.
That's right.
Jason, thank you so much for the time. Enjoy the rest of your Comic-Con.
Thanks.
Congratulations on an incredible panel.
Thank you.
I would just like to start with the visuals of the War of the Rohirrim. We've lived in the Lord of the Rings world in the past in live action and cinema. How did you kind of emulate that in anime and still make it your own designs to bring the world to such vibrant life?
イメージに関して話したいんですけど、こういう実写映画の世界観がある程度定着している中で、日本のアニメーションってそれやっぱり充実に表現することも大事だったし、新しい何かも必要だったんで、なんかそれってどういうプロセスでどういう考えでこれ認じたんですか？
そうですね、アニメーションでロード・オブ・ザ・リングの世界を描こうというこの企画を聞いたときに、正直最初はちょっと不可能なんじゃないかなっていうふうにやっぱり思いました。特に日本のこのハンドドローイングを中心にして、作るアニメーション、得意な部分と不得意な部分っていうのがあって、得意な部分っていうのはこうイメージを小説どういう世界なのかっていうのが分からないファンタジーの世界っていうのを こう表現していく、新しくこうデザインから作り上げていく部分っていうのは本来日本のアニメーションは得意な部分ではあるんだけれども、2000機の騎馬隊であるとかね、ランレンディングワイルドメンの軍勢であるとか、そういった合戦シーンとかっていうのを描いていくっていうのは本来はちょっと苦手な部分があって、それをどうやって融合っていうか、どうやって、具現化していくかっていうのはもう最初は本当に課題だった部分なんですけれど、一つはピーター・ジャクソンが一度映像化している、実写なんですけどね、それのイメージっていうのをなかなかこう払拭するというかな、それ以上のものっていうのを出すことは難しいので、むしろそこは借りることで、2D のアニメだけれども、実写とこうあまり変わらない世界っていうのをそこで作ることができたんじゃないかっていうのはありますよね。プラスその手書きのアニメーションが得意としている、そのたくさんのアニメーターがね、こう手で丁寧に描いていくっていうことでこう生まれてくる凄さっていうか、実写とはまた違うね、このライブ感っていうか生な感じっていうのかな、それがうまくロード・オブ・ザ・リングの世界を実写とは違う形でこう力強く描き出すことができるんじゃないかなというふうにちょっと思っていましたね。
So, are you okay there?
Oh, well, that one's still going.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I think for him, it was obviously when the project was offered and we decided to take it on. The initial thought was, actually doing this in anime is quite impossible, just because of the level of details in it and just the scale of it. Done in hand-drawn animation. I mean, it's quite a challenge unless we were given massive amount of time. And but what he thought was, okay, well there are areas where Japanese animation has an advantage. Where when it comes to doing a lot of fantasy genre, you have to imagine and then come up with something that didn't exist and then visualize it. So that so you have to really come up with that setting and then design. So a lot of that imagination process or design process, I mean, that's something that's that Japanese anime does a lot, and it's that's an advantage. But at the same time, when taking on this film, there's a problem of, for example, scale, and for example, like 2,000 Rohan riders, riding horse into the battle, to the army of Dunlending fighters, and they not only run, they clash, on screen, and that's and you have to do it all in hand, and all those detailed armor's got to move, and when it moves, it's all in hand, So how do you do this, And so I think that was a huge challenge, but at the same time. And also, how do you visualize all that? But the great advantage that we had was that Peter Jackson actually went ahead and did it, and so there was a great reference point. So so there was, and they opened up their repository to us, and they opened up their artists to us. They gave us access to Alan Lee and John Howe. So all of that, we fully utilized, and then melded it with the artists that we have in Japan and in Korea, actually, because one of the original character designers was Korean. So we basically pulled it all together, and then was able to make this happen. And that's because Peter Jackson went ahead and did it, and that in a way helped us to make it more faithful to the films themselves, that we are in that world, because you had to be in that world, And that was one thing. And another thing was basically what can we do in terms of what other techniques that we can we employ to try to make animation like this. So basically all the tricks that we had in our pocket, we basically threw it on at this film and then try to make it happen. And that's how it and then we were able to realize the film within a given amount of time. And so it was a tough process, but it was it was something that was worth it. Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. I have to let you go. Can I just? How long is the movie? What do you know the runtime?
The movie is about 2 hours and 10 minutes. It used to be 2 hours and 40, but yeah.
I can't wait for all 2 hours and 10 minutes, and if you release the 2 hours and 40, I'll watch all that too. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your convention.
Hello.
Gaia, hello. Welcome to New York Comic Con.
Thank you very much.
I'm
It's very
Brandon.
exciting.
It's
Quite
pleasure to meet
overwhelming.
Well, the panel was incredible.
Oh, it was good fun.
It was packed,
I know.
and the footage was amazing.
Yeah, I didn't look out before I walked on. I was like, if I do this, I'm going to just like wee. I'm going to wee myself.
Well, you did great.
Thank
did
you very
great.
much.
And I don't think there was any weeing on stage, so that's
No, I kept it in. It's fine.
impressive. Impressive. I want to. You get to play Hera, who there's a lot of uncharted territory with this character that is mentioned in text, never named. She just looks like an awesome character who's clearly going to be the heart of this film, and I cannot wait to see it. What was your introduction to the character, and can you kind of use that to introduce people to Hera?
So I initially, of course, I had the script and I had a piece of concept art, so I could see, she's this fiery redhead as well, which I love, and I've got them in my family. So I went, I know where this is. I know who you are. She's just such a fantastic, I'd say she's quite a complex character because she begins the film. Helm calls her his tearaway child. She's rebellious and adventurous, and she's always on Ashley, her horse, and she goes off and communes with the eagles, which of course is highly dangerous. And then, she comes back and is faced with just unimaginable horrors and unimaginable hardship. And I think through it, even in her fear and utter terror and utter loneliness, she finds this acute bravery and stays incredibly true to her soul and her morals as well. And so to be able to bring that to life was it was hard, but it was also incredibly rewarding.
That's so cool. And I find it interesting that you guys laid these voices down but never actually worked together, and I hear just kind of met for the first time recently.
Yeah, well, so I did a pass at it with Lorraine Ashbourne, who plays Olwyn.
Okay.
And I kind of think that lends itself really well to the characterization, because Hera and Helm, yes, they are incredibly close, and it is, the heart a father-daughter tale as well, and Helm features so heavily in it, but they are apart. They are chasms apart. He is a king, and he's incredibly patriarchal, and he's incredibly rough, and he's and so not being in the room with Brian and just having him in my headphones kind of made me feel that way as well. So then to get that in Hera was also useful. Not being in the room with Luke and, knowing that we knew each other very well when we were younger, but we've been apart for so many years, that was also helpful because I just have him in my cans. And so it made me more able to root the character in a sort of loneliness, because the only person she has really is Olwyn. And so then to be in the room with Lorraine was really useful as well, because then we have that camaraderie.
I love it. We've seen descendants of these characters in previous films, which obviously set after War of the Rohirrim. Can you talk to me about sort of like the family's position in the world, their dynamic with what's around them at this stage of the Legendarium timeline?
Yeah, I think they're quite apart from Gondor seems this sort of very far off space. Helm goes, right, she's going to go marry a king from Gondor. She's never going to know of our people. She's going to go, she's going to leave. And they really are just fighting the Dunlendings. Right. It's this very kind of insular, constant sort of war between these two factions. So it feels a lot more insular than some of the other films, I think, because it really is just between these two peoples.
So have you become an expert on the whole Tolkien world now, just by having to?
Oh, so glad it sounded like that. No, I do. No, I am. I know this thing. I love the films. I love the book. I love him. I love the lore. But I did have to get quite familiar with the Dunlendings and the Rohirrim, and that world.
I find it a little intimidating. There's so much information, and the fans they know it and they're passionate about it, as they should be.
Mate, Stephen Colbert.
How did he know the name of that horse?
Because it's him. The day that there is a question he doesn't know the answer to, he will spontaneously combust.
It's insane. I would never even try to compete. I couldn't do it. But
no. The minute if he even started to ask me a question, I was just going to walk off stage.
I gotta go. Well, that's a great place for us to end this. We gotta go. Thank you so much for coming by, Gaia, and enjoy the ride with Lord of the Rings.
Thank you very much.